For Louisville, Kentucky Derby Day, which is always the first Saturday of May, I became, along with the horses, big news through the New York Times, which had sent a copy pretty much to everybody, but it got into the hands of the Clarion Ledger, which usually features the horses. And maybe I was a bottom fold front page, but apparently what had happened was, and I knew this was on the agenda. Quite frankly, I didn't know exactly the date, but one fine day I was told that the only thing to do with these documents is to hand them over to Congress, and that would be to Henry Waxman. I said, well, that's a pretty good idea. And everyone had somehow had their piece of information, what to do with the documents. I didn't believe that was the last time you were going to hear from anybody, but as I know, Dick Scruggs and Mike Moore went to Washington on one day, and very shortly before the Derby in 1994, came into Waxman's office, put it in his hands, and I have confirmed this through several sources. The documents were laid out for Waxman, and from one account at least, he wouldn't touch them. Of course, I kind of believe that's true because I met Henry Waxman in Washington for an award, and he was very, very careful not to come into contact with me. It seemed I had the Ebola virus, and maybe he had it too. But I did get a chance to talk to his wife, and his staffer was constantly on my tail during that meeting, during that award ceremony, and it became important to me to understand that of all the people, I think Waxman had probably the most to lose in terms of trying to come across some tainted individual, where he met his individuals giving him these documents, who apparently had told him that these were stolen documents, and he went on the news and said, yes, somebody stole these documents. A paralegal or something. I've never been actually a paralegal, and so actually it was offensive. And it was certainly offensive to hear it from Henry Waxman, who has been for years this most stupid man, yet with good purposes, but stupid, totally stupid about the tobacco industry. I mean, he would ask stupid questions, he would get stupid answers. And yet this was his cause célèbre. And yet, on the whole, what I learned on the morning of the Derby Day, which was a big thing, lots of different things going on. I had a call from Louisville from my wife. She said, what's happening? And the first thing I thought about was, well, this doesn't look too good, but I remembered in the back of my mind there was one promise that Dickie Scruggs made, aside from those that he didn't keep, was, if you ever get in trouble, don't worry about it, because I'm going to have you a bodyguard, or we're going to have some people who will help you out. And I believe at some point during that time, he was hooting and howling, and he loved the idea that the New York Times, Phil Hiltz, who was later to write a book, comes out and we had met in a couple of times over the summer of '94, and so later on he writes, I don't know, he writes a book, but Phil Hill started the thing off. He wrote very well, very nice pieces, and they were picked up by various news journals and newspapers, including just about any. But the Clarion Ledger was the local newspaper in Kentucky, and so it was a shock to a lot of people. And yet Waxman had a right, and according to what I understand, he had distributed the documents to the staff who voraciously occupied time going through the documents, and then somehow it just slipped over the New York Times in the sense of the Pentagon Papers. Just disappeared. Didn't object to that. I mean, it went in the hands of what was at least a precedent, and certainly for congressmen, as long as they sit in their seats, they're certainly protected.
You began a period of isolation.
Mm-hmm.
What happened?
Well, '94, the rest of '94, it was very depressing in the sense of first I had to deal with. In Mississippi, nobody was supposed to come near me in terms of.
Were you welcome there?
Oh, no. And neither was I known to be here. And a lot of people got it wrong and said, well, you ran away from Kentucky. You escaped from Kentucky. I didn't escape from Kentucky. I was trying to maintain my lawsuit after everybody was assuming that I was doing certain things that I was doing on my own, as if I could. There's no way in the world I could have done these things without the lure and without positions of these wonderful scholarly people, the boys from Ole Miss. I mean, that's just the whole concept of this. The money, the power, a lot of people who fell upon this, and I virtually was left into isolation. And I suppose that became important to me because my children were there in August, and I was a little bit afraid of them in Louisville by then. So it was a little bit safer, I thought, even though, again, while he was saving his bodyguards up for the true hero of the story, he had promised me often, okay, we'll make sure you're safe. He didn't need me. He did not need me at all. There was no need whatsoever. My computer was shipped over to Gaucher, where I was allowed to pick it up, and then I could continue on with my book. I was not permitted any real access to anything. I was shifted over into a law firm called Martin and Williams, and then essentially was a deadhead over there. Wasn't anything for me to do. It was sort of like a ruse, and it was a ruse. It was. Dickie was trying to fool around with how to legalize his illegal behavior, but at the same time, remember, he was an appointed attorney general. And Brown and Williamson still has not sniffed it out. And eventually they find out, oh, it's in California. It's just amazing. So then they go to California, and here's where I really admire Stanton Glantz and the California librarian and all these other people. Once it was out, it was out. There was nothing I could do. But to the responsible people who handle the people from Brown and Williams, who have got to be told sometime, look, you can be conservative, but you can't be stupid. They were just absolutely so conservative throughout their lifetime. And I think that was the English part of them. And they were out there raiding the library as if they could do that. It's sort of like trying to steal the Gutenberg Bible. It wasn't going to happen. It just wasn't going to happen. And libraries are protected territories in many ways. So this was a very smooth opportunity. It excelled in good behavior and good legal talent, and certainly for the regents of University of California, they stood by this, and they wanted to make sure that Stanton Glantz had an opportunity to first turn out the AMA Journal and then to write the books, the Cigarette Papers, which, by the way, was the original title for a book that Morton Mintz and I were going to write until he decided that was his title. Anyway, we start off with that in Derby Day, and we got some more here before I close out this part.
What happened in Kentucky? Were you cut off?
It was between two parts and my children, and I had my children in a home, and we had a home here. I wasn't going to let Dickie Scruggs take that away from me, because he became very distant, very foreign. In November, we began to get people in from the PI, the private investigators, and so I remember meeting with Dickie in one of the slum coffee houses. It was a pre-Starbucks day when you could go in and have toast and coffee, and so he was getting a little bit antsy because I called him and told him that the PIs were out and they were looking for me, and I was a little bit concerned. So I met with him one morning, and he pulls up with a Mercedes as if, God, he's got a diplomatic flag on his Mercedes. He's so stupid, And there was in that moment, and I knew this, a guy in the back of the booth, and I'd been warned by a fellow over in Path Christian who told me, no, it's Gulfport, told me that somebody came to my office and told me that they were looking for you. He left his card and this sort of thing. So they were straight up PIs. I do recall on being shot at, or close to, or maybe it wasn't that. I mean, it's sort of like the bullet in the mailbox, but if you want to go that far, I don't know how the shot was made, but I can imagine they just tore the end out of it and said, "Whoops! There's a bullet in the mailbox," and there you go. So I had the same experience. Happened to have a little bit of earlier experience in this, and I was on the track, when there was a track in Ocean Springs. Nevertheless, we began a new series of delightful and entertaining sometime, but it ended up my children actually had to leave and return back, and it was safe, so I went back, and the entire period of 1994 had to do with private investigators trying to protect myself. Sam Dash was brought up as a possible person who was going to defend me. Didn't work out that way, nevertheless. we all had a good time. I'm sure Dickie had.